I'd like to present best-selling author Augie Maciel, and he'll be talking about how to write a book in 30 days.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Thank you very much for that introduction. I wish I was a bestseller, but maybe one day, if it's in the cards for me. So I want to start by basically saying good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good day, everyone. I am very thankful that you have chosen to come to my non-technical presentation. I'm really, really glad that you're here. And I'm going to assume that the reason why you're here is because at some point you may have thought about the idea of writing a book or becoming an author. And that's why I really wanted to do this presentation, because I have done it and I want to share some of the things that I've learned in the process. So maybe one day you could too write a book. But not only I want to get you motivated to write a book, I'm going to tell you how you can write a book in 30 days. And I would like to start by first telling you a little story about myself. So back when I was 15, I was still living in Brazil. I was born in Brazil, and I was like any old other 15-year-old boy. I was into playing video games and hanging out with my friends and doing, the usual stuff that 15-year-old boys, I guess, would do. And my sister, Evie, I have two sisters. My oldest is, her name is Daniela, and my youngest is Evie. I'm the middle child. And my sister Evie had a friend, Cynthia. And Cynthia used to come to our house maybe once a month just to hang out with my sister Evie, and they would spend time in my sister's room, and they would just talk and do whatever. I never really paid attention because they're both 2 years younger than me, and I was 15, right? Why would I hang out with a 13-year-old? But then all of a sudden, Cynthia started knocking at my door, and she wanted to listen to my records with me. And back then I was really into listening to Pink Floyd. I was a huge Led Zeppelin fan, Dire Straits, and I had this bunch of records that I would just listen and blast it really loud in the home. And so she started knocking on the door and saying, "Hey, can I listen to your records with you?" And I said, "Sure, why not? Right? Here's someone that I can teach them, what good music is all about." And she started coming more and more often now. So instead of coming once, maybe once a month, she was showing up twice a week. And instead of hanging out with my sister, she was just listening to my records. And then my two sisters, being the good sisters that they are, they started teasing us, and especially me when Cynthia wasn't around. And I could see them talking to my mom, or then talking to each other, whispering and pointing at me, and laughing. And they started really teasing me because for the first time ever, I had a girl coming over, and she was hanging out with me, spending a lot of time with me, and they really, really teased me a lot. But I was a 15-year-old boy, and what do boys, or men for that matter, really know about women? Probably not a whole lot. We are dumb. We are that dumb. And it wasn't until Evie, my sister, spelled it out to me that Cynthia had feelings for me. It wasn't until she did that I started realizing, I noticed it. I was like, oh, okay. I see now. I see why Cynthia's coming over. And to my 15-year-old brain, that was like a bomb going off. I didn't really know what to do with that information. But the one thing that I knew was that I just had to I had to change how I was. I just couldn't keep my room messy anymore. So I started cleaning up more often, right? And whereas before I'd never really cared about if my room was clean or not, now I was really concerned about, is my room clean? What about the shirt that I'm wearing? Should I put a clean shirt on? Right? It was the kind of stuff that I never really paid attention much. So I started doing all these things, and after a while, I came to the realization that I started having feelings for Cynthia, but I didn't know what to do, and I was like, what do I do with this? So I don't know how to date. There's no man pages, right? I didn't know what to do. All I knew is that she liked me. I felt that I liked her, but I didn't know what to do. And after many very crucial conversations with myself, I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I came up with the great idea that, hey, why don't I just tell her how I feel about her? But not only that, I didn't stop at that. I also told myself, why not kiss? What's the phrase? Why not complete the deal with a kiss, right? That's what was going through my mind. So the next time Cynthia showed up, she had this blue BMX, a bicycle that she used to ride whenever she came to my house. So I knew that she was coming over that day. And what I did was I stood outside. I was not at home inside of my room. I was standing outside. And as soon as she rolled in her bike, I said, "Hey, Cynthia, why don't we go for a walk?" Right? It was towards the end of the day. The sun was about to set. And I figured, let's go for a walk because I wanted to be alone with her. I wanted a little bit of privacy. I wanted to be able to have a conversation without my sisters or my mom teasing us. So we went for a stroll, and I used to live in this house. It was a ranch, a white ranch, and it was only 2 blocks from the beach. It was really that close to the beach. So I remember that there was this one spot that I thought that would be the perfect place. The way that I imagined how things would play it out was that we'll go to this perfect spot, and I'll wait until the sun was just about certain height, right, almost kissing the sea, and that's when I would talk to her. So as we walked towards the beach, I started steering her and ourselves towards that spot, and I think I just timed it. I timed it just right because when we got to the spot, then the sun was really setting, and the picture that I have in this slide, it's pretty close to what I saw, right? So the colors in the sky, it was just an amazing, breathtaking view of all these different shades of yellow and orange and reds, and the sun setting down, and it was just the perfect place. So at one point, I grabbed Cynthia's hand, and then she looked at me, and I looked into her eyes. And if you want to know the rest of the story, you're going to have to wait until I write it down. But this is a true story. And the reason why I wanted to tell you the story, I wanted to share this with you, is because the premise that I want to start with is that everyone has a story to tell. We all have some crazy uncles or really funny friends, or we all feel that we've been through some harrowing situations, some funny situations, and we all have these stories. So why not take all of these stories that you have in you and turn them into a book? So why should you write a book other than just the fact that you have a ton of stories to tell? I also feel that, and this is based on my experience, when you write a book, it forces you to get in touch with those thoughts, the things that really shaped you, the values that you had, the things that happened to you. It's a good thing for you to stop and think or try to remember those things that happened to you. It is also a good way for you to make money. So once you write a book, and assuming that you can get a couple of people to buy your book every now and then, even though it may not turn you to a millionaire, it's still a good passive source of cash, of money that you can make. Another reason as to why you should write a book is that when you write, especially when you're retelling some of the stories experiences that you had in the past, it can help really reignite a passion. For example, let's just say that at some point you were really crazy about baseball or any other sports, or maybe you were into painting. And if you are writing or at least trying to remember and trying to retell a story about how when you were younger you used to play baseball, or how you met this amazing painter that really had an impact in your life, it may just reawaken that passion for something that you've done in the past. And I think that's a good reason. It definitely worked for me. It definitely had that impact on me. It is a new challenge. It does require you to do something new, especially if you've never written a book. That's why I think that's a good thing. I like to always look for ways to grow. I always try to look for ways to improve myself. So writing a book definitely pushed me off my comfort zone there, and it was definitely a new challenge for me. And there's many more reasons to why I think you should write a book. But one more that I'll mention is that as you write a book, you will find yourself doing a little more research. And it's the kind of research that you may not actually do it on a regular day. Because as a quality engineer or as a software developer, you're probably thinking about, you do a lot of research, but it's about how am I going to solve a technical problem. And the kind of research that's required when you're writing a book is slightly different. And one example that I'll tell you right now is the book that I wrote over the summer. I wrote my second book over the summer, was required me to do a lot of research in terms of what were the kind of music in movies that were popular at the time for the setting of the book that I was writing. Or at one point, I wanted to talk about a picnic that took place in a certain place on a certain date, and I had to go find what the weather was like for that day on that place, just to make sure that if I were to have a picnic, was the weather picnic worthy, right? Was it warm enough for someone to have a picnic? And that was a great experience that I had. So here's a little formula that I'm going to share with you that hopefully will be helpful and put you on track, set you on track to write your own book. We start with writing a book plan. And what I like to think, the way that I like to think about a book plan, this is really a roadmap. This is the place that when you sit down to do this, you're going to just write down about the story. What is the story that you're trying to tell? What is the story about? Who is the story going to be written for? Who is your audience? Who are you writing this for? Who is the narrator? Who's telling this story? You want to write that down. You want to also talk about the characters, right? So going back to the story that I shared, the characters were my two sisters, and you will notice that I try to get into a little detail about, I had two sisters. I was the middle child. I told you their names. You could actually go a little more in depth later on, but right now it's just a list of the characters, and then the timeline. When you want to plot the timeline for when things happen in your story, you want to really capture those things, and the outcome of writing the book plan. One of the greatest benefits is that you can always refer to it if you find yourself lost, if you forget where you were trying to go. The timeline will tell you what the next event should be, and then the next, and the next, and the next. Now, I will tell you right now that even with the book plan, sometimes writing a book, the story has a way to basically come alive. And then the story starts dictating what the timeline should be, and then what the characters should be doing in this sort of thing, which is kind of, I know it's cliche that people will say the story will write itself. And it's funny because I noticed that, yeah, it does happen. Sometimes the story will dictate itself what the plot line will be. And it's funny when it gets to that point. But a book plan is a good start. Then you want to talk about the outlines. And what you want to do is start thinking about that timeline and all the characters and what the story is about. And now it's really about figuring out what should happen on each scene or a chapter. A scene could be a chapter or it could be several chapters. So, for example, thinking about that last scene of the story between Cynthia and I, where I had to plan that she was coming to meet me in my house. I knew that she was riding the bicycle, so I wrote that down. She has to have that blue bike, has to be in the story. And I could even go into like what she was wearing, what she looked like, how her hair looked, what I was wearing, what was the weather. I talked about how the sun was setting and how the sky looked, how I was feeling. You talk about your emotions, the person's emotions, what they like, the facial expressions and stuff like that. These are all notes to yourself. You're not writing the book. You're just telling yourself this is an outline to basically say, I'm going to write this book and I want to make sure that I write about the bicycle. I write about how I was feeling and why I figured that I wanted to go for a stroll. The outline would also be very helpful as you're writing the book. Then you want to write a list of characters. And you can go to town here, especially if you like details. So the characters, one is Augie, and he is 15 years old, and he never had a girlfriend before. And you can talk about that. Maybe I was a nerd and I was into computers. I was actually back in the day. I was already into computers and into soccer. That was the sport that we all watched. And talk about Cynthia and how she had green eyes and the foods that she likes, and the music. I told you about Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin, Dire Straits. So you try to create, you put the names of your characters, and then now is the part where you start really thinking about what they look like. The book that I'm writing right now, I knew that I wanted one of my characters to, don't ask me why, but I knew that I wanted this character to have a big nose and very thick black frame glasses. I knew that for a fact that I wanted that person to be that way. And then another character had to be born in Hawaii. And I know nothing about Hawaii, but I wanted that person to be from Hawaii, right? Which then forced me to do a lot of research. And I actually had to learn a couple of slangs that they speak in Hawaii just to try to make my book authentic. But this is a good thing to make the list of characters. Mood boards. This is the part where now you are really trying to get yourself into, not just into the mood, but really start thinking about the scenes they're going to be writing in the chapters. And for the book that I wrote over the summer, I knew that the setting was going to be 1997. It was summer of 1997. And it was going to be on the place was going to be the town where I actually lived in 1997, where I went to high school. So I created a playlist on my music player, and these songs are all from 1997. So I had to do a little research. And as I sat down to write and as I listened to the music helped me travel back in time, if you will, to 1997 that summer. And it really allowed me to remember what my town looked like. What was the high school? Where was the high school? How far was I? And it reminded me that in order for me to go from home to the high school, I had to walk past this pizza place that I always stopped on my way back for a slice of pizza and a bottle of Snapple. So it's really, you start to visualize the scenery, the settings of the book, and having the playlist really helped a whole lot with that. And then create the reward system. And this is a way to keep you motivated. And what I have here in the picture, these are two reward systems that I've been using to motivate myself. One is at the end of the day, whenever I was done writing, I allow myself a piece of something sweet. And this is something that my mom made for me, something that's made of, it's like a peanut brittle-like thing with coconut too. So it was right there tempting me all the time, but I only allow myself to eat it when I was done writing. The other thing that you see in the picture is a dashboard, if you will, that I created. It's a very, lazy man, simple man dashboard. But the idea here is that you want to track how many days in a row you've written. You can do that for other things too, like exercising. I have it for reading, self-care, other writings. But the psychological effect that the dashboard has is once you start filling those boxes, once you start building a chain, then it's really hard for you to break that chain. If you have that standing right in front of you, you're not going to want to break the chain. So even when you're feeling not in the mood, you're feeling tired, you had a long day, you much rather sit down and watch TV or go out for a jog or something for a run. Still, this is going to be staring at you, and it's going to have a very strong psychological effect. And if you want something a little more technical, then there is a website which you'll be able to find once I share the slides. That is also a campaign for helping people to write books. So NaNoWriMo is a program that encourages people to write. And this one, you can see that it's got a web interface that allows you to set a goal And you can say, I want to write at least 50,000 words or 60,000 words. I want to be done by whatever date. And then it gives you a nice little, not burned down, but burned up chart or a progress chart that then as you start updating your writing progress, it does show you where you stand right now. So this screenshot was taken a couple of days ago. I'm up to 30,000 words right now, and I've been writing nonstop for 18 days. I haven't written today. And so I want to challenge you all to do a similar thing. 50,000 words in 30 days. That's why we're here, to talk about writing a novel, writing a book in 30 days. And you can choose the way that you write this. For the more mathematical inclined people or more engineering inclined people here in the call, you can see it as, hey, if I write over 1,600 words every day, including the weekends, I'll be done with my 50,000 word book in 30 days. You don't want to write on weekends, then you have to write a little bit more. You can't afford to write during the weekday, then you do it over the weekend, right? So this is not really a rule of thumb or anything like that. The idea, though, is that you want to keep writing. You just want to write. It doesn't matter how many words. It could be 200 words today. It could be 1,000. It could be 4,000 in a couple of days. The story will dictate, I think, how much you write. Some parts will really get you going. Some parts will be a little bit hard, and that's maybe because you need to do a little research. But that's really the challenge that I want to challenge you all to try to do this. And because I did it. My first book, which is on Amazon, you can search, you look me up on Amazon. It's Software Quality Engineering, Tales from the Trenches. It was the first book that I wrote. I never thought that I was going to be able to do it. And it's got 29,000 words. It took me about 2 months of writing. The second book, which is already done, it's finished right now, but I haven't published yet. It's 63,000 words. It was more, but after editing, I had to cut some words. 63,000 words. And this one I did write in 1 month. And right now I am in the process of writing a third one. The title is, the working title right now is The Big Score. And I know it's going to be more than 50,000 words, but the goal is to at least have 50,000 words in a month. So I did it, and I'm sure that you can do it too. Once you write the book, there's so many other things that you have to do, that you can do, especially if you want to do traditional publishing, or if you want to do self-publishing through Amazon. But there's a whole process of editing. You want to get someone to do proofreading for you, the book cover, or the layout of the text, how you want the page to look like, right? There's so much there. If you want to do traditional publishing, you need to go look for a literary agent. And that's hard. It's hard. There's so much I could talk. But because I did not have a lot of time for this, I did add a little more information about each one of these items on these slides. So I guess I will stop here and basically say, thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for being here. And I urge you to go write your book. Go write your story. And with that, I will take any questions that you may have for me.
Thank you, Augie. We have a couple questions. The first one is, I want to write a short sci-fi story. What tools would you suggest me to use for writing?
That's a great question. The advice that I can give you is this. We're all engineers, and we tend to engineer things around here. Do not try to engineer how you're going to write. Pick whatever text editor that you are comfortable with, whether it's Vim or Emacs or something fancy or Google Doc or whatever. Just write. And that's, I think, the one advice that I would like for you all to walk away. If there's one advice, is that don't think too much. Don't even try to edit the things that you're writing as you're writing. If you can't think of the right word, just put any word. Literally write, find a better word here, but just keep on going. Just write. The tool itself that you're gonna write, the editor, it's the one that you are most comfortable with. Last night I was watching some of the QE Camp talks from 10 in the evening till past midnight, I think. And I was writing on my phone because I was watching things, and I had some ideas, and I started writing on my phone. So whatever text editor you're comfortable with, that's the one that you should use.
Okay, and another question. How do you surprise or great impact to your reader?
Good question. One thing that I try to do in my second book is you want to end your chapters with a cliffhanger. You want to, it's like that moment when it's like you're waiting for something to happen and then the bad guy shows up and then you end the chapter because now the person is probably not going to want to stop there. You want your reader to really be excited. So if you can, and especially when you creating the timeline, I talk about the plan and the outline and the timeline, that's when you can start putting all those ideas in there, right? So I want to make sure that I end this chapter this way so that the reader will be not forced, but will be motivated to go to the next chapter. I hope that answers that question.
One more question, Augie, and I think we should move to the hallway then. Can you focus more on the post-publishing process? Did you self-publish? How do you market? How many sales have you had?
Okay. So I'll answer them in random order. I guess in terms of selling books, I am definitely over 100 copies, and I'm not marketing or anything like that. I've sold over 100 copies, and that's all through word of mouth, right? So that's what I've done. Post writing is another marathon, and it really depends on how much time you want to spend on it. But for the second book, I actually hired someone to do the editing and the proofreading, and that was a great experience. It was a great experience because it allowed me to think about things that I wasn't thinking about. One example I'll give really quickly is one of my characters said a certain slang, used this slang in one of the dialogues, and my editor came back to me and she said, "Hey Augie, I looked up this expression, and that expression is from 1995, and it came in a book. Do you think your character in 1997 was familiar with that book to use that slang?" So it was really like that deep impact that the editor had. And I mean, I forgot some of the other bits of the question, but please reach out to me offline, and I'll be more than happy to sit down and share my experience with you. Was that anything else? Any other question?
Thank you, Augie.
You're welcome.